Hey folks, welcome back to TheByteBit. In today's video, we're going to take a look at how I like to customize my Ubuntu installation. Now, there's a bunch of ways of doing this, and I know that Ubuntu just switched from their Unity desktop environment to the Gnome environment. So just wanted to spend a couple of minutes going over what I like to do in terms of customization. It is one of the most widely used distributions of Linux out there, and hopefully you guys can pick up on some ideas and implement them in your operating system. So let's take a look. So here we are at the desktop of basically a default installation of Ubuntu 17.10. Now, I did move the dock to the bottom of the screen, and I've also installed some applications that I was testing. But essentially, there's been no changes to the aesthetics or enhancements to the desktop environment. So this is what you would get as an out-of-box installation for the operating system. Now, as I pointed out in the beginning of the video, what we're really going to be going to is something similar to this, whereby I have the dock from the bottom and the toolbar from the top sort of combined together. I have all of my actions in one particular area, and I also have a new icon set that I use and a theme. You can change the text and go from there. I think the changes that I implement, to me, make it a more elegant experience, and I think that's what I'm really going for. Now, you can spend hours and hours and configure the desktop environment to your particular standards. You can change it outright and go to another one entirely. That's all up to you guys, of course, but hopefully some of the choices that I've made and the suggestions I offer here in this video help to kind of guide you guys into making some changes on your own that can help enhance the visual effects, enhance the actual operating system in terms of the desktop environment. So let's go ahead and switch back here. Let's go to, this is the original VM here, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the browser. And the first thing I want to do is make sure that we configure the extensions.gnome.org URL to work. And what I mean by that is there's basically an extension that you have to install along with the command you need to run that allows you to install any of the extensions from the GNOME world onto your desktop environment. And it's actually pretty simple. It's just a click of a button and you can enable and disable extensions ad hoc. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and click on this link here to install the browser extension. It's going to come up and it's going to say, do you want to allow it? I will say yes. And we'll give it a couple of seconds to go through, and it's just giving you a rundown of what it intends to do: access your data for this page and display notifications, access browser tab. So I'll click add, and there it is, it's been added. So once I've done that, there is a second part that I need to do that involves running a command in the terminal so that it'll actually sort of link up and allow you to install the extensions. So since we have the extension installed, I'm going to click on the wiki page here, this link, for a quick second, and once the page loads, if you scroll down based on your release of Linux, in our case it's the Ubuntu release, so I'm just going to scroll down to that section here. This is the command that you need to install, and this will allow us to, as I said before, install any of the extensions available to us from the page directly into our operating system by just clicking one single button. So let me just copy that out here real quick, and I'll open up a terminal, and I'll go ahead and paste that in, enter in the password real quick, and let it do its thing. Alright, so now that I've done that, I can close out of the terminal here. In fact, I'll close out of the wiki page as well. And now what you'll see is once I actually refresh the page, it will remove the information here, this sort of balloon pop-up, because obviously it's going to detect that we have the extension installed. In fact, you kind of get this list here of the extensions and then the search box, which is great, which is exactly what we need. And just to point out the process here, I'm just going to click on Open Weather as an example, and once it comes up, you'll see that there is now a switch here, and if I do click on it, it'll actually prompt me and say, do you want to download and install this particular extension onto your computer? I can say yes or no. So I'll cancel that for now. And that's essentially the first step we wanted to take, just so that we can get the tools ready and set up for us to continue the customization process. before we can install our extensions, it's worth taking a minute to install the GNOME Tweak tool. It's extremely useful, and I really would wish that GNOME would actually combine both the Tweak tool and the Control Center into one, because obviously as a user of the desktop environment, I find myself going back and forth between the two, and really at this point it doesn't serve anybody any benefit to have them separated out. Now, you can install the Tweak tool from the command line, just like you can any other application. You can do it from the Software Center, and you can also do it from a package. For us right now, I'm just going to use the apt command and install it because it'll take just a quick second. And then I'll show you guys what that looks like, and then we'll get right into the extensions. So let's go ahead and start by installing the GNOME Tweaks tool. Now, this tool is really useful for us because it allows us to go into one central location, modify a number of topics for the actual desktop environment, along with the extensions we're going to install. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, you can install it from a package, you can install it from the Software Center, or you can install it from the command line. I'm going to go ahead and use the command line because it's just, or the terminal rather, because it's just easier to do. Right click, I'll open up a terminal here, and we'll go ahead and type in the command. I'm going to let that process. Doesn't take very long to do. Alright, we'll go ahead and close that out. And I want to take a look at the Tweak tool for just a quick second, just to show you guys what that looks like. In fact, we're going to keep that minimized as well. So I'll click on the launcher here, and I'm going to scroll down because it's going to live in the utilities folder here. So I'll expand that, and there it is. Here's Tweaks. Okay, so this is what the Tweaks application looks like, or the GNOME Tweaks tool looks like. And I should add that, at this point, it would be beneficial for the GNOME folks, the developers, to combine this with the Control Center. I mean, it gives you a number of useful settings, as you'll see, and it's, quite useful for everybody. It doesn't harm the operating system in any way. It doesn't take away or detract from the desktop environment. As in point of fact, it actually adds to the value of it. And as you can tell from the left hand side, you can change the appearance and make changes to the themes. You can go to the desktop and show some icons and the all important extensions. Now, a quick bit about the extensions here. You can see that the Ubuntu app indicators and the Ubuntu dock are installed and they show as on. And if I were to go and just actually disable them or turn them off, it won't make any difference at all. And the reason for that is because these are system extensions that Ubuntu has implemented. Now, there is a quick way to actually remove them if you wanted to, but by default, I just wanted to show you this just so that you guys are not you don't assume you're running into any problems if you want to turn them off from here. So these, regardless of showing as on or off, it doesn't actually do anything for you because they are system extensions. Now you can also change the font, you can work on the keyboard and mouse, power, the top bar, even workspaces. So clearly there are a whole slew of options for you, and you'll start to see why I think it's beneficial for this to be combined with the Control Center. Alright, so let's go ahead and click on extensions, and we'll minimize this guy here. We'll come back into the extensions. And actually, you know what? I do want to move the dock, the Ubuntu standard or the Ubuntu default dock, to either the left or the right hand side. The reason for that is because when we install the new dash dock, it'll actually combine the top toolbar with the launcher of its own, and it'll place it on the bottom here. And so if you do this now, it'll actually overlay both of them together. It causes some problems, harder to work with. So I want to kind of avoid that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up settings here real quick, and I'll click on dock, and I'm going to change this from the bottom to the left. Now, by default, if you install the operating system right out of the box, this is exactly what you'll see. You'll see the activities toolbar here with the date and time and such, and then the dock will be on the left-hand side. So now that we have that here, let's go ahead and install our first extension. It's going to be dash to panel. Okay. Now, there are two options here to select from. The first one is dash to dock. This is just as the title suggests. It creates a dock for you. Now, most people out there will pick one or the other. Some will prefer this, where they have the dock and then the system toolbar at the top. Great if that's what you prefer. Or you can actually have, what we're going to install today is the dash to panel. This actually will combine the two. So it'll combine the launcher and the system toolbar, or the system tray, all into one for you. And in fact, this is what it looks like here from the picture here. You can see that it combines everything into one. I think this is a more fluid design. It's more elegant. It also gives a little bit more real estate as you work on a laptop, say, or tablet, or a system. So let's go ahead and close that out here. And since we install the extension, the Gnome extension here for our browser, we actually see that there's a quick flip switch here. Again, very simple to use. I'll go ahead and click that, and I'll say install. And if you give it a second, now you can see. So as you can tell here, this is the new one. So it removed the system tray, it brought it down to the bottom here, and it combined our dock. I think, again, much easier to work with, more real estate. You really can't go wrong. And as I said before, if we did not move this dock, the system dock that is, to the left or the right, we would have sort of had an issue where we were dealing with both of them at the same time. So definitely that's the case. So now that we've got the dash installed here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this default dock. And when I say remove, what I'm really doing is I'm hiding it from the system. It's not going to be deleted. You can always bring it back if you want to, so there's no problem there. And in order to do that, we actually need to go into the terminal and rename a particular folder. So I want to go through and start by clicking on the File Explorer here for a quick second. And I'm going to go ahead and click on other locations, and we're going to go ahead and open up computer. I'm going to go to the user folder, and I'm going to go ahead to share, and I'm going to type in GNOME here. So it's going to be GNOME shell and extensions. So if you come into this folder, what you'll notice is the similar extensions from what we saw in the tweak tool. You've got the app indicators here, and you've got the Ubuntu dock. Now these two are those extensions, and as I said before, because they're system extensions, trying to remove this or hide them from the tweak tool won't do anything for you. But if we simply rename this folder, log out and log back in, you'll see that the dock will be removed, or it'll be hidden or disabled because we already have one that we're going to use. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to right click here in the folder. I'm going to say open in terminal. And once that comes up, I'm going to do a quick LL. This will just give you a directory listing of what's there so you can see the folder names. And then I'm going to do sudo because I want to actually perform this option with administrative privileges. Okay. And actually, I'm sorry, I do need to type in MV here. So I'm going to, MV just means to move or to rename in the Linux world. So I'm going to say, I want you to rename this folder to org. And so what I'm essentially doing is I'm just going to rename this folder, and I'm going to append the org letters to the end of it. Again, just a quick way of hiding this extension from the system, and so when I log out and log back in, it won't be present, or it won't be visible anymore. So I'll hit enter, type in my password here. I might have, it would be helpful if I typed it in correctly. And there you go. Okay, so now the folder has been renamed. Again, I'm not deleting anything, I'm just renaming it. And so I'm going to go ahead and log out, and I'm going to log back in. And once I get back to the desktop, you'll see that this dock here on the left-hand side will be removed, or it won't be visible any longer. So I've logged back into the desktop here, and as you can tell, it's clean. The default dock is no longer visible, and both of the toolbars here have been combined into one panel. And again, I think it looks much better in this configuration or this customization layout. And so the next thing I like to do is I like to move the panel to the top. I've just been used to using that. Even in the Windows servers that I run, I have that set up for the top as well. So this leads me into the settings for dash to panel, which is a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on the icon here for launching the apps, and I'll choose dash to panel settings. Now there are a few customization settings in here that you can choose. You can decide what type of indicator you want for focused apps that are started or unfocused apps. You can actually choose the position, whether you want them at the bottom of the icon here or if you want them at the top. In fact, If you take a look at the orange bar here, I'm not sure if you can see it clearly enough, but right now it's at the top. If I choose bottom, it jumps to the bottom. So you can actually choose the type of indicator you'd like. A couple of nice changes here that you need to look into. I'm going to go ahead and change the panel itself from the bottom to the top. And then that should be exactly where I need to. I don't need to worry about the size right now for the app icon, the panel size. I think everything looks great for my particular layout. Of course, if you want to change those, please go ahead and do so. And then you can take a look at the behavior tab, and you can see it shows you the show favorite applications. You can change animation, the activities here, the window previews on hover if you want that to occur. If I hover over it, similar to what Mac and Windows do right now. So you can work on the workspaces as well. Click actions. You can even fine tune it here. You can change the size of pixels for the tray, left box, a whole slew of other things here, including advanced options that you can change the timeout for the icon. So if you guys are interested in using the dash to panel, I suggest you take a look at these options here and maybe play around with a few of them and see if they help you out, or if they refine the look and feel even more than what we're doing here in that sense. So that should basically cover the dash to panel extension. And so if I close this out here, I'm going to go ahead and open up the tweak tool just so that I can show you that we do in fact have one more extension that's been available. And if I pull that up here, I'm going to go ahead and click on extensions, and you can see that dash to panel is now visible. If you're wondering where the Ubuntu dock is, obviously because we renamed that folder and we logged back in, it's simply not going to show in here. If I were to rename the folder back and log out and log back in, it would show up in here in the list. So that's why you don't see it in this list here. So that covers the dash panel that I wanted to go over, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the next extension now. Before we go on with our next extension, I'm going to go ahead and just save or change the settings here for the tweak so it remains on the dock for me. So I'll just right click and add to favorites. This way I don't have to keep going into the launcher and finding the app and launching it from there. So our next extension I wanted to take a look at has to deal with workspaces. Now, some of you, maybe even most of you, won't use this feature. I know that Windows has something similar and Mac has something similar as well. It's whereby you have virtual desktops, so you can rearrange your applications in one desktop to another based on their type or your particular workflow for daily use. And so I like to use it on my main system because I have several monitors, and I do like to place certain applications on certain virtual desktops within those monitors to kind of help me my workflow be as smooth as possible. And in this extension, you can definitely try it out. In fact, I suggest you do. See if it does work for you guys, and if you do find it useful. And if it doesn't, just go ahead and uncheck it or delete it from the system. It's a click of a button. So let's go ahead and open up our browser here. And as you can tell, I'm at the extensions page here. I'm going to go ahead and type in Workspaces. And you'll see something called Workspaces to Dock. This is the one that I'm going to be using now. And this extension has a whole bunch of settings similar to the dock to panel extension we installed. There's a whole slew of settings here. There's the actual settings window itself has multiple tabs, and we'll take a quick look at it. But I kind of want to preface here by saying that if you do want to use this and you are preferable to this particular type of workspace extension, definitely look at the settings there. Take a couple of minutes and look at them, because there's, like I said, a whole bunch that you can kind of tweak and fix and adjust to get it to work exactly the way you want it to for your desktop environment. So with the extension selected, I'm going to go ahead and click on the flip switch here, and I'll say yes, install. And by default, what you'll see is that it pops out here on the right hand side. Now it is set to auto hide. It's an intelligent hide feature, so as you move Windows into its sort of area here, it will auto hide for you. And of course, if you full screen a window, it'll auto hide as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of the features that it has. For one, it's an active tile view, or a live view, quote unquote, of what you're doing on that particular desktop. In fact, if you pay attention to the right hand side here, for workspace number 1. You'll see that as I move this window around, you get a live preview of the window itself, so you can kind of see the changes going on. And you also get, by default, a list of the icons or the apps that are running on the actual workspace. And by clicking on them, you can bring them to the fore and work with them. I think that's a fantastic feature to have. It kind of gives you a quick glance, or at a quick glance you can see what applications are running. And as you'd expect with workspaces, you also have the ability to take an application or many of the applications running and move them to the workspaces of your choice. So I'm just going to click on the Firefox browser here. I'm going to click and drag it over to the second workspace here, and you can see that it moved it over to workspace number 2, and it also created a workspace 3 for me. So by default, it's giving you a clean workspace, at the bottom, so you can always refer to it, or you can always move another application into it if you need to. So that's also a really cool feature about it. You can also click on any of them. Single click will take you right to that desktop or that workspace. Or if you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, which 99% of us do nowadays, you can actually just scroll, and while you hover over the extension here, you can scroll and you can get to the workspace of your choice quickly and easily. You don't need to press a hotkey or a global hotkey. There is one, it's actually the super key and W that you can press to invoke it if you have auto hide enabled. But by default, you can just scroll up and down and get to your desired workspace, and use the applications in it, or remove or delete, and go from there. So next we're going to take a look at the settings for this particular extension. To get to the settings, what I like to do is just right click on the workspace number here, and if you do, you get the pop-up menu, and I choose extension preferences. And one thing I do want to point out here, actually two quick things. You'll see that the extension list behind us isn't actually updating. It doesn't update in real time. Even if you choose another subsection and come back to it, it doesn't actually update. So you do need to close out of the tweaks application and come back to it, or reopen the tool. And the second point I wanted to make is having this live view of the desktop here, as you can see, affords you the ability to have a running application or an installation of a piece of software or some kind of app or task that requires a progress or time in order to complete, and you can throw that into one of your workspaces here, and at a quick glance you can see it. You may not be able to tell every particular detail, but at least you'll get an idea of something finished, or if the application loaded or quit, along those lines. So really helpful as a feature set. So getting back to the preferences here, in fact, I'll go ahead and I'll minimize the tweaks tool. Preferences, as I said before, has a bunch of stuff that you can click on and configure and sort of tweak to your desire. And I just want to take a look at a few things, because just for the sake of time of this video, and the idea that these are the settings that I like to change when I install this extension the first time. So first thing I like to do is change the opacity. I actually drop that down to about 20, just to kind of give it a more, better look to it around the edges of the workspace window. And I go into the behavior tab here, and what I like to do is I like to turn off the intelligent hide. And so what that happens is that when I turn that off, if I take my mouse all the way to the right hand side, it'll pop up with the workspaces window. If I leave this on here, what it does is it kind of stays there until either an application comes into its workspace or the area that it lives, or I full screen. And at that point, it would actually remove or hide the workspaces extension. So I actually like to remove that. And if you go into the miscellaneous options here, you do have a short key or keyboard shortcut that you can actually invoke. So if I do hit the Windows W or the Super W, it'll come out or pop out for me. And when I'm done with it, I can just kind of hide it back again when I need to. So that's always a nice little tidbit to have here. And at that point, I can go ahead and change some timing if I need to. If I want to adjust the delay or the time delay in the workspace extension, I can go ahead and do that. And if I wanted to stay constantly here, like for instance, if I'm running multiple monitors and I have one of the monitors on the right or the left that I would like for it to remain permanently, I can keep it there, so this way it'll always be visible to me and I can utilize it at that point. So again, not to beat a dead horse, but there's a whole slew of features here. Please do take a few minutes and see if any of these features kind of help you configure the extension, to better match your needs. So I'll go ahead and close this out here, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the next extension. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the aesthetic changes that we're going to make. And the first thing I'm going to start out with is installing a new icon theme. I think it is a drastic change that can really spruce up or give a facelift to your desktop environment, and also is really easy to install. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the browser here. I've actually loaded up a web page, and again, I will put all of these links below in the description in case you guys are interested in looking at this a bit more. And from omgubuntu.co.uk has an article here where they list out some of the more popular themes, and there's a whole slew of websites out there that do the same. You can do a quick Google and come up with thousands of results, I bet. So the one that I particularly like is actually the first one listed here. It's Papyrus, and I've tried a few out in the past, and whenever I want to change, I end up trying out some other new icon theme and then invariably switching back as the days go on. But I think this is sort of my default go-to here, and as you can tell, it's sleek and also has a really good link or set of icons for your applications. And the article actually goes into a little bit detail on how to install it. In fact, it's pretty simple. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna copy the first link here, and I'll open up a terminal, and I'll go ahead and paste it and enter it in. Let's try that pass one more time. Yeah, I think I changed it. There we go. All right, and it's asking me, do I want to install the PPA? And I'll say yes. I'll hit enter, and it'll go out and do its thing here. And once I'm done with that, I'll come back for this second line. Right click and paste. I'll hit enter here again. And as you can see, it's trying to go out and fetch all of the icons and the files that it needs. And once it's done, this shouldn't take very long at all, depending on your on your internet connection. But once it's done, we'll go ahead and go into the tweak tool, and we'll change out the theme. So we'll give it a couple of seconds to finish here. In fact, I'll pause the video real quick, and I'll be back as soon as it's done. So that finished up for us. I'm going to go ahead and close out of the terminal here, and I'll also minimize the browser here, and let's go ahead and enable that icon theme for us. So we'll open up the tweak tool here, and I'll click on the extensions first, quick, because you can see that the workspaces to dock is now visible for us. And if I click back to appearance here, I'm going to go ahead and select on icons, and you can see that I do have a few to select from. You can do the light, the dark, adapter, based on your preferences and likes. So I'm just going to choose the default, and you can see that it automatically changed the icon set to something much more pleasing, more updated feel, I think, for 2017/2018. And again, I have tried a few, so for me this is ideal, but for you, you may want to choose one of the others that's listed in here, or go to the website or do a quick Google and see if you find an icon theme that fits your needs the best. So yeah, so you can choose different ones if you want. I think, in fact, the light and the dark may not really have much of an effect, only because I haven't changed the theme here, or the dark theme. But you can choose the one that you prefer. And that pretty much covers the icon theme. Again, very simple, straightforward. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and I'll bring up the launcher here, just so you can kind of get a feel for what it's done to the icons. You can see it's really made quite a difference here. In fact, even the utilities here have changed for us, and you can kind of get a feel for it. Again, if you do a quick comparison between this and the standard icon and the standard desktop for Ubuntu 17.10, no less, you'll see it's a lot better in terms of changes. So that should take care of the icon set, and we'll go ahead and move on and take a look at the next thing. Next, we're going to actually go ahead and change the wallpaper. Now, that's the easiest thing you can do, and in fact, I do that often based upon my workflow or the theme or the color theme that I'm using for that week or that day or that month. And in order to do that, you just right-click on the desktop here and say Change Background. And I change both. I change the lock screen and I change the background. So for the lock screen, for this particular week, I'm actually interested in using this deck here, the planks of wood. And I'll hit select, and for the background there's one of the lighthouse, so I'll select that, and I'll change that out. Really, that's all there is to it. I'm sure you guys have done this plenty of times before, but it is just one of the things I like to do when I set up a new Linux environment. So I'll close that window out and move on to our next change here, or the next installation, and that has to do with the file manager. Now, Ubuntu does come with a file manager, and it's the default, obviously, and it does the job. You can get to the folder, the path that you need to, you can delete stuff, go into your home directory, look at column data, and such, file sizes. But I think it's quite limiting in that there are other options out there that once you do start to use it or use them, I think you'll start noticing that it's really a must-have. So I've done a video that I'll post in the description below on a file manager called Polo. And of course, it's open source, and if you guys are interested in it, I highly recommend that you guys try it out. There are a bunch of others out there too, so don't let the Polo file manager stop you necessarily. You can try out some others, but really look to enhance your workflow. One of the things that I do when I have my classes at work is that I sort of help folks adjust to their new environments on the server end or the laptop end, and really anything that you can do to increase or refine your workflow, I think is a necessity. So with that said, let's go ahead and just close this guy out here, and we'll open up the browser. Let me full screen this. Now this is the GitHub page for the developer that created Polo File Manager, and it goes through all of the feature set and the look and feel and the information that you can read about for sure. And again, as I said, I did make a pretty decent video about it, going into the features and the options that it has. So I'm just going to scroll down here, and I'm going to go ahead and install it, because I absolutely do this on every new installation of Linux, especially the newer versions like 17.10. And as you can tell here, the first section is what we need to use. So I'll just go ahead and resize this window here, right click, and we'll open up a terminal. And let's go ahead and copy out the first one here. This is adding in the PPA. So we'll let that go through. I think I've already added this in, but if not, it's no big deal. I'll go ahead and run a quick update here. And this obviously can take a couple of minutes or maybe even a minute, depending on how much it has to quote unquote update. And I'll go ahead and I will install the file manager. So right click and paste. All right, so yeah, seems like I have the newest version installed already. Go ahead and close this out here, and I'll click on the launcher, and here's the Polo file manager. First thing I'm going to do is right click and add it to favorites, just so I can have it in the dock. So we'll do that, and then let's go ahead and launch it. Now, when you first launch it, you'll be presented with this style window. In fact, let me go to tools here, and it's called Style Wizard. And from here, you can actually select the quote-unquote initial view or the layout that you'd like to see when you first start the application. So again, this is also one of the applications here that has a whole slew of settings that you can go through and configure and fine-tune. But suffice it to say that this is really the view that I particularly like. It's two folders, just so that I can kind of work with two different panes or two different folders in at the same time. Let me just go ahead and quit this file here, and then you can copy, paste, and go to different folder settings and path, and there's so much to this. Again, I think it outshines the default file manager in many ways, so definitely take a look at that. I also have this set to a particular dark theme. In fact, if I go to tools here, and let's take a look at, actually let's do let's see, edit preferences here. You can also get to it by the settings icon here. And then if you go to the UI, you can actually select the GTK theme. I have the darker Polo. There are a few to pick from. So I have it set the way that I like to, and again, for me, for a file manager, this is it so far, until I test something else out or something else comes up on the horizon. So we'll just resize this here and go ahead and close this guy out, and we'll minimize this, and we'll go on to the next thing. Next, I'd like to take a look at a widget, or more precisely a system monitor tool that I install, and it's called Konkey. Some of you guys might have come across it in the past, and it does allow you to display your system information along with some other stuff. There's a whole slew of profiles and even themes that you can download onto your desktop, and it sort of overlays on top of your desktop, and it gives it a really nice look and feel to the system. And I just want to preface by saying that the things we're about to do to set up the application does require a little bit of work in the terminal, and some of you out there that are new to Linux may not want to necessarily take on this particular install. But I say install Ubuntu in a VM, try it out, go through the process if you're apprehensive in doing so, that is. But I think once you see the end product and the way that it looks on the desktop here, I think you guys will be interested in definitely giving it a go. So what I want to do is I want to pull up a website that I've used in the past and I think is going to help us in this regard. And I'll put this link in the description down below. But essentially what it is it shows you how to install the Conky Manager on Ubuntu. And it goes over and says it's a highly customizable system monitor for Linux and FreeBSD as well, and OpenBSD. It goes over some of the information you can view. There's a lot more too. And it goes, if you scroll down here, it goes into the setup process. Now, I'm going to go through this process with you guys now and show you exactly what I do. It's basically following this step-by-step process here, so you guys can take a look at it. And again, as I said, try it out in your virtual environment, see if you like it, see if you like the themes and the information that it can display for you. And if it does, maybe set it up on your main system. So with that said, let's go ahead and scroll back up here, and we're going to start this up. So let's resize the window so we have some real estate. And I'm going to go ahead and right click, and I'll say open terminal. And let's go ahead and let's see. All right, here we go. Here's the first one. So we'll copy this command and we'll say paste. Oh, actually, this password was reset. There we go. All right, that was easy enough. And so this website, or the walkthrough here, is actually saying that once you install it, that's all you really need to do. You can run it. If I do, you'll see that if I move the window here is the actual window, and you can tell it's actually flickering or refreshing every couple of seconds, every second, to give you that new data, the CPU usage and the file system and memory and uptime and so on. It's great, you can use it, but I think it's not clean. It definitely doesn't belong in 2017, and we definitely need to change the look and feel, and more precisely the overlay of this information on the desktop. So let's go ahead and just I'm going to move the window back here, and I'm going to hit Control-C. If anything that you run in your terminal, as long as you see it running here, if you do a Control and the letter C together, it'll kill or stop that process. So just terminating that process. That's what I just did here. And we'll go back to the website here. So, and in fact, it shows you a screenshot along with the activity monitor, or the Conky monitor, system monitor running in the desktop there. Again, does not look anywhere near what we would prefer in today's day and age. So let's scroll down here, and it goes into a section about the preferences file. The way that Konkey works is that it requires a configuration file in order to fine-tune the system or the properties of the application. And so it basically goes into the system here, and it says you can go in and you can use the system-wide configuration in this etc directory, or you can actually, as a safer approach, make a copy of it and throw it into your home directory. And again, when you run Konkey, when you actually start that up, you can actually, what it does is it looks at your home directory and sees if you have a configuration file. So this right here, and if it does, it'll look to that, and based on the settings in that file, it will display the information for you. Hopefully that made sense. Anyway, we're going to go through this, so if you have any issues with it, please, you can rewind the video and kind of watch it again and until it kind of makes sense for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to follow along, and I'm going to copy this file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, open a terminal window here, And I'm going to go ahead and copy this command out, right click and paste, hit enter. Now because I'm copying a file, that's what CP means, I don't really need to do this with administrative privileges, right? I'm just going and fetching that file from this folder, this etc folder, and throwing it into my home directory. By the way, the tilde sign that you see here is really short for the home directory. So I'll give you an example here. I'm going to type in LL to list out the folder contents, and you can see that in this blue color, there's desktop and documents and downloads, music and pictures, right? And you can see that after the colon, I do have the, let me just increase the size here a little bit. You can see the tilde sign before the dollar. So if I were to go into, say, desktop, sorry, I believe it has a capital D. So if I go into desktop, you can see that it has the tilde sign / desktop, right? That's the path that I'm working in. So if I were to type CD, it means to change directory. And if I type in that tilde sign again, it takes me right back to that home directory. Anyway, that was just a quick aside just to let you know that what this command is letting you do is copy a file from one folder to your home directory. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and scroll down here, and it's telling you that you can actually use a text editor of your choice and look at the configuration settings. There is a lot in this file, and it really isn't the most ideal way or method to adjust it. Now, if you want to go and tweak the file, you can certainly do that and spend the hours that you're going to spend in it. Or what you can do is you can actually use the Conky Manager, and this is a lifesaver because this allows you to apply all the widgets that you'd like, apply the themes, download more themes, edit the widgets and configure them all with a simple front-end GUI. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow through here just so that you have the process in place. But essentially, the file manager, excuse me, the Conky Manager won't work on the Ubuntu release of 17.10. In fact, I don't think it works on 17.4, and it actually just says that the PPA doesn't support 17.04. Not to worry, because there's a really simple, easy workaround. And again, if you follow these steps that I'm doing, you can go ahead and try it, and you'll see that it's not that difficult to install. So I'm going to scroll up here, but again, I'm going to go through this process. So I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste. And I'll go ahead and hit my password and go ahead and hit enter and let this complete. It didn't take too long. Let's go ahead and run another update here. All right, that was easy enough. And I'm going to go ahead and install the manager. Now, if I scroll down just a little bit more, what you're going to see is it says the above PPA, the above installation isn't going to work for 17.4, and you're going to get this error message. Just want to run through the steps so you can see that. So I'll right click and copy, paste it in. All right, and you can see that it says unable to locate the package. All right, no problem. Let's go ahead and scroll down here, and it says if you're using 17.4, and obviously in our case we're using 17.10, there's actually another installation file, a Debian installation file, so we're going to go ahead and grab that. I'm in my home directory here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just copy out this 64-bit because that's the version I'm running, and I'll right click and I'll paste, and I'll hit enter. That was easy. All it's doing is grabbing this installation file from the internet, and I'll scroll down, and it tells me how I get to install it. So I'm going to go ahead and run this apt install to install this application here. So I'll right click and hit paste, say yes. I know this seems like a overly drawn out or involved process in order to get this widget system installed, but again, going through this is just a one-time deal, and then you can open up the manager and apply the theme or the widgets you'd like. And again, as I said, I think it'll give it a really nice look and feel, as you guys will see in just a minute here. All right, so I've gone through that, and I've installed the installer here, and it tells you, right, then you can install the GDebi, and which this will actually automatically handle packages. So I'm just going to copy this guy out here, right click and paste. Say yes. All right. So really, that's all you need to do. And then now it should be in your launcher, and you can go ahead and launch it has an icon that says CM for Conky Manager. And this is what it looks like. So let's go ahead and minimize the browser. Let's go ahead and close out both of these terminals here. And let's bring up the launcher here. And here it is. Here is the application. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to add to favorites. And we'll go ahead and click on the app and load it up. This is a very simple app. It's not, very complicated to use, which I think is great. And it makes much easier process than having to configure a text file and get into all of the details and look at the explanation of pages and stuff. So once you have this up here, you can actually hit play or start. You can start or stop the widgets from showing. And what I like to do is I like to have the Gotham widget here. In fact, I'm going to highlight it so you can see what it shows, the date and time, and it shows you the RAM usage in place. And you can actually get more widgets and you can get more themes. But this is what I'm going for now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check this off. And you can see it shows up right for me at the top here. It's trying to blend in, but it's not completely transparent to the background. And we'll change that very easily. Before I do, I'm just going to go through a few of them here, and you can see this does a sort of date and time approach. Here's something that gives you the Linux system information, including the uptime. You can take a look at the CPU information as well, and you can go through and really just, there's a bunch of stuff here. And as I said, you can actually get more of these downloaded based upon your needs and your likes. Themes is next. It comes with one theme, and of course you can get more themes, but I'm just going to highlight it so you can see that it changes the desktop background, and it gives you the date and time here all in one. And you can go ahead and apply it if you want just by clicking on the checkbox here. Now, each of these have settings and options that you can play with, including the settings for Conky Manager itself. So let's go back to the widgets real quick. And I'm going to highlight this here, and I'm going to click on the edit widget. When I do, it's going to bring up this window here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the transparency. Instead of saying pseudo transparent, I'm going to drop this down and say transparent. And when I hit apply, what you're going to notice is it's going to blend into the desktop much better. So I'm going to click apply, and there you go. So, no sort of jagged lines there, and it looks like it's a part of the desktop. In fact, it looks like it's a part of the picture, but in reality, it's live data. As you can see here, the CPU keeps changing. Change your background color. The reason why you have these settings for the widget is because based on the widget, the transparency type might need to be changed in order to better suit your background. And so you'd have to play with that in order to make it look as good as you'd like it to be. So once it's on transparent, I'm going to go back to location here. I'd like to change it to the middle. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to say apply, and that's all I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and click close. And in fact, let me just move this out the way here for a quick second, and you can see how it looks. It's clean. I love the font. It gives me the hard drive space, the RAM, CPU usage, and today's date right there on the desktop for me. So really clean look, especially if I don't have any windows open. It's kind of nice to have and view at a glance. Okay, so I'm going to bring this window up here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the themes. Again, this is just one of the themes. You can actually download themes from the internet, and you can you get a package, throw them into the folder here. In fact, there's a link for the theme folder. You can throw them in here, and you can actually take a look at the different themes out there, install them, and then play with them if you'd like to. And you can donate as well. There's also settings for the application. This is the settings for Konkey, which I want to take a look at next, actually. Simple, general, and locations. I run it at the startup, obviously, because when I start up my Linux environment, I want that to be there by default. It gives you a startup delay, 20 seconds is fine. And then for locations, you can actually go in here and you can actually add additional locations for where the themes live. If you have a network folder or a documents folder or a download folder that has all the themes for Konkey, you can just add that location in here. So let's go ahead and close this out here, and I'll say OK. And again, a lot more options to select from. You can go ahead and recycle the widgets. You can stop them, start them, and so on. But for now, this is really all I want to do. And I do know that it took a couple of steps to get it to work. And if you want to try it in a virtual machine, please go ahead and do so. Or if you think this is a little bit too much work in the terminal, then by all means, you can avoid it. But I think the overall look and feel is worth the time and effort. All right, well, let's go on to the next thing. So next, I'd like to make a quick change to the terminal. Now, there's a lot that could be said about, using one terminal app or another, and there's a whole slew of customizations that you can apply to the terminal itself and change what information shows when you first launch and all that. For me, I prefer just the simple, plain old terminal window that I see here. And in fact, the color changes I'm going to make are even simpler to do. Just click on Edit. You can click on Profile Preferences here, and I'm going to go ahead and go to Colors. And I'm going to move this over so you can kind of see it in real time here. The tilde sign is a little bit harder to read, and I don't like the purple background either. So what I'm going to do is uncheck this text and color background from the system theme. And that kind of gives me a nice cleaner approach. And then I come into the built-in schemes and I change that to Tango. And when I do, take a look at the tilde sign for a quick second, because you can see it, hopefully in the video it should come across, but it'll make things that are smaller text a little bit more clearer to read. So I'll click that and it kind of highlights it that way and kind of gives me a nice look and feel to the terminal. I'll go ahead and click Close, and I'll go ahead and close this out and right click again and open up Terminal. And you can see that my changes have been saved. Again, simple and easy to do, but I particularly like these changes. Play with the rest of the settings if you guys like. See if there's other color schemes that you guys prefer based on your theme or your background. So I kind of wanted to bring the video to an end by presenting you guys with the URL from GitHub. Now, this URL has pretty much all of the most used or widely known applications for games and utilities and the terminal, and for your desktop environment, for applications. It's got everything, and it's kept up to date by the community. I think there's a bunch of folks that work on it, and so I want to show that to you guys right now. Let's go ahead and close out of the terminal here, and I'll open up the Google page. Again, I will throw this in the description down below. It's called Awesome Linux Software. The list is extremely long, and it's got everything from, in the application sections for audio and file managers and graphics and terminal utilities, to command line, to setting up the environments, to games. I mean, there's so much stuff here. I'm just going to scroll down for a little bit. You can see, and everything has its little sort of short description. You can obviously view the details of which and install. I haven't been through everything in the list, but I think these are all open source applications. I could be wrong. Again, take a look at it. Keep this bookmarked if you use Linux. Regardless of the flavor, I think this list is sort of a must-have, because as you can see as I keep scrolling down here, you have editors and stuff for education and email. You can even download software for recording your desktop if you want to start putting out videos on YouTube, games, as you can tell here, and the list goes on and on and on. So there is a bunch of stuff to look at. Over time, I think you'll find that you need a application for audio or video, or for your storing something in cache or something like that. So if you do, you can check this list out and see if there's some viable options for you. So this is a link I check probably like once a month maybe, just to see if there's anything new out there, or if I'm trying to install something for somebody. A buddy of mine wanted to download some videos from the net, so I just got him the YouTube DL here, which actually allowed him to download those videos. Or those office suites that you can install. So WPS as an example, LibreOffice. So much to talk about, so much to go over in here in this list. So can't go over everything. Obviously you won't use everything, but it is definitely worth having in your favorites list. So definitely take a look at it if you guys have some time. And I'll minimize this here. So that brings me to the end of the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed and liked the customization slash software that I installed. Now, I haven't gone into the software bit. If you guys are interested, please let me know. I can certainly go ahead and make a video about the software that I use, all the different types of software to accomplish the tasks that I do on a daily basis. So if you guys are interested in that, please let me know. Obviously, like and subscribe if you guys are happy with the video. If you guys like it, please do. That certainly helps. And if you guys have any comments or concerns, just throw them into the comments down below, and I'll be happy to respond as best as I can. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.